if in fact it is found that members of Congress were accomplices to this insurrection, if they aided and abetted the crime, there may have to be actions taken beyond the Congress and in terms of prosecution for that.
Capitol Police say they are investigating the possibility that some members of Congress gave what Democrats have alleged were reconnaissance tours to the rioters ahead of the siege of the Capitol last week. This as questions around whether some of the cops were also in on it, either by letting rioters run free or by even taking part themselves. But here's the headline, folks. This has always been an inside job. From the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where police beat bloody the citizens they were charged to protect, to Standing Rock Reservation, where law enforcement attacked Native Americans fighting to protect sacred ground and clean water, and to the many Black Lives Matter protests we saw this summer. So joining me now to talk about this is Morgan State University politics and journalism professor, Dr. Jason Johnson, who's been peeking his head in here during the commercial break. So, Dr. Johnson, happy to have you on this panel. I have to say, look, neither you or I, in our group chat, we have never been expressing sentiments of surprise. We've never been, what? You don't say. The police were in on it? The police moved the barricades for them and welcomed them in? We were all giving a collective eye roll like, yeah, have you not been listening to us the past couple of years? This happens. What are your thoughts?
You know, sometimes I want to tell some of these members of Congress and some of these political analysts who are shocked, you know, sometimes it be your own people, right? Like, why do you think that the police are, why are you shocked that the police are involved in this kind of behavior? We've not just seen it, but this is not new. We can go all the way back. I give him a lot of credit. Former Senator John McCain, who passed away in 2008. John McCain was pushing for legislation to keep people from joining the military and police departments who were caught with white nationalist and white supremacist symbolism and tattoos on their bodies. He was like, look, it shouldn't just be sort of black street gangs. We need to look for these white nationalists, too. This is not new. Stormfront, all these neo-Nazi boogaloo groups, they encourage people to join the armed forces to get the skills so that they can one day fight their white nationalist race civil war. So this isn't new. I think the question is going to be, is our federal government, are our state governments willing to prosecute these people for violating their oath to protect the public the same way that they want to prosecute black people who are just trying to keep themselves safe and not being shot for being unarmed and being black and being in your house?
You know, something interesting happened this week. Attorney General Tish James, first black woman to hold the office in New York, she actually is prosecuting. I mean, she named names for police officers who she feels used excessive force at some of the Black Lives Matter protests in New York. And she even names Mayor Bill de Blasio in this. Do you think we'll see more justice like that take place across the country?
Unfortunately, Tiffany, no. There aren't that many Tish Jameses. That's why we talk about her so much. I mean, we wish there were more attorneys like that. We wish there were more district attorneys. And we've seen oftentimes when African-American or simply activists, district attorneys or attorney generals, when they try to engage in these kinds of reforms, there's often a tremendous amount of pushback from police unions, from politicians, sometimes from cowardly individuals who think that they can benefit from allowing that kind of violence to continue. So I think this is, you know, I don't like using the term reckoning over and over again because it is something that we've been talking about. But you can't keep this incoming government safe if you can't trust the men and women who are supposed to be protecting me. Everybody out there is not going to be Eugene Goodman. Every cop out there is not someone who believes in democracy. Some of them are just as committed to this white nationalist insurrection as Trump himself.
And let's be honest about that. Finally, you know, instead of being received as, you know, shifty when we've been declaring this for a long time. You and I talked about this when I was writing my book, and the fact that in the years leading up to the 2016 election, 2,300 elected prosecutors nationwide were not black. I mean, most of the people who were making decisions about how we're going to be prosecuted were white men. They were making decisions whether to press charges, whether to not press charges. And we see what happens when the media started covering this whole situation with more nuance. We saw an influx of prosecutors. You had Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore around the Freddie Gray case. You had Kim Foxx in Illinois. So, you know, I hear you. I just wonder, now that it's not just law enforcement officers, they're actually lawmakers. You have lawmakers on Capitol Hill bypassing, walking around metal detectors. They've welcomed a QAnon supporter, believer, into their membership ranks. Where do we go from here? I mean, I'm really, literally terrified about where we go from here.
Well, where we go to is what our mutual friend Ellie Mistel said last week on the show. We've got the laws and the protections in place that can prevent these sorts of tragedies from happening. We just have to see the law applied to white people the way it always is to black folks. Right? If you are a police officer who is caught engaging in seditious activity, you should get fired from your job, and the police union shouldn't protect you. If you are a lawmaker who is encouraging violence in a riot, you should be expelled from your job. This is key, and I want people to understand this on the far right and the far left. This is not about silencing free speech. This is not about keeping people from having any ideology. You can be a right-wing, racist, hating person all you want, but the moment that you break the law is where you can be held accountable. And when these politicians and these tours that were supposedly walking through the Capitol building the day beforehand, the fact that Ayanna Pressley's office had panic buttons ripped out, these are the kinds of things that people need to be investigated for.